I'm Simon. I'm just a TOCA member, and been Saab's customer 3 times, and I learnt a lot about PPFing from Saab, and I figured that with a lot of people getting Teslas and general interest, if we all got together and Saab gave us a talk, it would save us a lot of time, and we'd probably get a lot of like cross-pollination from other people's questions and stuff, and we'd be more informed consumers. Anyway, so we've got 3 parts of the night. First part's Darryl, who's the TOCA committee member for the ACT. He's going to tell us about TOCA and good reason for joining. Second part, I was just going to run through the charging adapters, because I remember when I got my first Tesla a couple of years ago, I just went out, I had a job, so I was cashed up, and just bought every possible adapter that you could buy to charge the car, because I guess I had range anxiety. And I've seen on the Model 3 Facebook page a lot of questions of what should I buy, what should I buy, what should I buy? So we'll cover those a little bit, and then people can do that. And then I have some boot camp notes, and we can go around my wife's car, which is that white one, and we can quickly run through some of the setup things for the Model 3. And then we'll get through that quickly, and then I'll hand over to Saad there, who does the PPF and stuff, and he'll run through the various options for PPFing the car, because I certainly, before I had a Tesla, I didn't even know PPF existed, didn't know what it was. I wasn't going to spend my hard-earned cash sticking something I didn't know about on my car. So we'll go about it. And I'd like to say the first car I had was a red Tesla, really nice. After 8 months, I could see little swirl marks in the paint, and I was panicking because I'd only hosed it off and carefully polished it, and I could actually see the results of my action on the car, and it was starting to look second-hand, and I wanted to avoid that. And that's really what got me talking to Saad and acquiring a fair bit of information and thinking, hey, this information is pretty good. So that's what sort of drove me to being a third-time customer now, and also trying to share that knowledge. So we'll hand over to Darryl, and he'll tell us about TOCA. So Darryl.
Okay. First thing I want you to do, because we're going to be around here, so to all move up here from very low now, I want to walk now. Come in nice and close. Excellent. So TOCA, the Tesla Owners Club of Australia. Why would you want to be part of it? Because you're part of the early adopters of electric vehicles, and it's so exciting to be part of the family. And learn from your fellow members, because that's a great way of learning. Instead of having some dealer who's made the sale just wants to get you out the door, you talk to fellow electric vehicle owners, Teslas, and it's great. You get all enthusiastic, telling each other what, oh, I found you can do this, you can do that, oh, did you know this happened? It's a great way to learn about your car and to help other members what they can find out about their car. That's what Simon's going to do tonight. Enjoy the camaraderie in the park as we go along. Not only events, we have a Facebook presence, and it's a closed group which is deliberate for members only, so you don't have trolls and everyone else coming in doing it and stuff. So it's members only, and you get to know the other people on the group, and some people are very active on the group, which is really good. So you can see what's happening, and it's nationwide. You can see what Queensland's doing, what's happening here and there, which is really great. And speaking of events, so we do have events nationally and locally, and we do need to kick off a few more local events. We've had things like out at Shaw's Winery, because they've got Tesla chargers here, contentious character out down that way. In the morning tea at Yarralumla, but all the people at work, all their work complain that they work enjoy, so it's fine. Move around. But it's up to people here to suggest what things you'd like to do as a part of the club. Charges. The Tesla Owners Club, we have a selection of these you can borrow. So before you leap out and go, oh gee, I might need one, I'm driving up to Brisbane, so well, maybe you think that's what you need to get up to Brisbane, you can borrow it from the club. There are loan adapters to help you get there, so before you try before you buy type thing. Technical help. If you're not sure of something, okay, great place on the Facebook. Hey, I can't make this work, blah, blah, blah. And screenshots, the amazing amount of information from the members that we see on Facebook. And for charging, there's a great section here on the website all about the different types of charges and how you go about it. But after Simon finishes tonight, you won't need to worry about any of that. You know it all. And two more things, merchandise. So, and I forgot to wear my Tesla hat. You can buy Tesla owns a couple of Australian merchandise online, and then for the genuine Tesla merchandise, we do a bulk buy each year. So we get a discount at the pub. We put in an annual who wants what, put it all in, and bulk buy from Tesla.
When does that normally happen, Alex?
Now, there was a few hiccups last year, so everyone's going, oh, I'm not going to do that again.
In time for Christmas, I think she's hinting.
We're looking for someone to take that line on.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And finally, I don't know about other clubs, but with the Tesla Owners Club, we have an agreement with Tesla Motor Incorporated. So this is not just, hey, let's create our own club here. We are an official Tesla Motors Incorporated club. So we have relationships with Tesla at the local level, mainly here, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, because that's where there are Teslas, at the national level and also at the international level. So as an official club, we get 2 seats at one of the annual conferences, either the American one or the European one. Obviously, whoever goes, you've got to pay for yourself to get there and everything else. But it's not just a enthusiast club of local, we are linked into the main big Tesla, and ability to provide feedback, even things such as collect information on where's a good place for the next Tesla supercharger, etc.
This is a selection of chargers that I rushed out and bought myself because I had range anxiety, and I can quickly run through them because I'm seeing people asking. So this one here is the Type 1 to Type 2 adapter. This is a Type 1 plug. Now obviously you've got one end of the plug at places like Westfields. The old Roadster one used to have this plug, and a Nissan Leaf has this plug. And so if you go to Westfields, you'll pull out that and go, oh, I can't plug that into my car. That's what happened to me. So I ran off, bought the adapter for like, I don't know, $200. Then you go back and plug that in your car and you go, great, it's charging, 4 kilowatt speed. You know, that's like 20 kilometres an hour. What a waste of money. You know, like, unless you work at Westfield and you're going to be parking there for 8 hours, it's not worth it. So I think I might have used this once or twice in 2 years. So some people, and you can get these in a more refined thing, so they will suit people, but unless it suits you, it's not worth buying, and that's pretty much the message for all of these adapters. And I think the real conclusion is, unless you identify a need, don't bother buying it. And if you think you've got a need, then it's probably cheaper to pay the $70 and join Tesla for a year. Borrow the adapter, do your road trip, see how it goes, and if you like it, then buy it.
Sorry, Simon, that one there, Westfield or Woden will loan you one if you park in there.
That's it.
While you
I
park.
couldn't be bothered going.
No, there's
No,
so
sorry
that
about
was,
that. That's what happens.
Really desperate for one, I've got 2.
There you go. Yeah, so sometimes you can find places they give you the adapter as well. So the Anvers Chocolate Factory has got a charger. One's got a Tesla plug and one's a bring your own cable, and they've actually supplied the cable. So it's really great. It's like a bring your own restaurant where they give you the wine.
So Simon, put you on. Well, this is for the Model S and X though, isn't it?
You can plug that into a Model 3 as well.
Okay, right, that's good to know. Okay.
Yep.
I wasn't aware of that.
Rightio. And this one as well, you can use this on an X and X3. I should do it right, the S, the 3 and the X, that's how Musk would say it. So this is a bring your own lead. This is a Type 2 to Type 2 adapter. So this plug is the same as that goes in your car. This actually goes into the EV supply equipment, so EVSE. So we see EVSE, that's that. And with the Model 3, if you plug that in there and plug that into your Model 3, you get about 11 kilowatts of charging, which is, funnily enough, the maximum you can charge a Model 3 at. So again, not a bad option for a Model 3. If you're charging a lot in Canberra at the ACT charging stations, you've got to get a swipe card to activate the charge. You can't just rock up with a cable. You plug in, swipe. The casual rate's $5 for 15 minutes. So, and in an hour, you're going to get 12 kilowatts. So if you've got a standard range, you're looking at 4 hours to fill your car up. If you've got a long range, 6 hours. That's a lot of $5 for 15 minutes. So it could be good if that suits your situation. The next one that might be useful is this is the Shady Mower adapter that I bought from Tesla. It's about $700. Yeah, Neil used it. This is probably the adapter I've used the most because I'm a tight ass. Because NRMA, you can use these for free. So this goes into a tritium charger. They've got this massive thing there that the high-speed chargers in Europe on the car looks like that, and you plug in. So you can go to a tritium charger, plug in on that, plug that into your car.
Is that on a Model 3?
On a Model 3, you can still use this.
Yeah, but you don't need to.
You don't need to.
No.
Oh yeah, right, okay.
So you won't charge.
But they're bringing out one of these for a Model 3, I think.
That's a while.
Yeah.
But don't the NRMA chargers also have a CCS too?
Yeah, but you have to be careful, right? Because there's a CCS1 standard, and the CCS1 standard looks, the top half of it looks like that, and the bottom half has got the two big DC pins. So you can. So one of the reasons for having this is if you get snookered because of the old standard persisting when it's not supposed to, you could use this. But obviously, as Neil said, this is just for S and X.
I've never seen, there's a number of them on plug shed that say they're CCS1, but they're all CCS2.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a CCS plug on anyone yet.
Someone got snookered in South Australia and put it on Facebook.
Oh,
And it was some wacky charger. Yeah. But it's a tritium charger with a CCS1. Okay, so this is sort of interesting because this actually turns if you've got the hardware update, this is a CCS2 retrofit. And what this does is this lets a Model S or a Model X use the Model 3 charger. So you get the retrofit, which is software, firmware, hardware in your car, and then you can get the adapter. They include it in the $800 retrofit, and then you can plug that into your Model S or X, and then the CCS2 cable that's standard on Model 3 goes on that. So for S and X people, that's probably the way to go, because it aligns you with Model 3. Now this thing, its theoretical maximum is 50 kilowatts, but the most you ever get out of the NRMA chargers is about 43 kilowatts. This thing, I think the maximum on that is 150 kilowatts with version 2 supercharging, and they've raised up the Model S and X now, and you can get about 118 kilowatts out of the supercharger. So, and the reason charge speeds is important is it's not important if you're just driving around, because 95% of your charging is done at home. So you're just charging at home, whether it's through your UMC because you're living in an apartment, or whether you've got your HPWC wired in, so you're charging at home. Charge speed's important is if you're going to further away, like 400 k's away, you're going to have to stop to charge in your journey. And so if you have to stop to charge, you're going to have to wait for it to charge up. And so the higher charge speed means less of a wait time. So the Model 3 is really great because it's theoretically a 250 kilowatt charge speed. So you're not even going to have enough time to go to the toilet and get a cup of coffee before your app is telling you your car's ready, idle fees apply. Because if you stay in a supercharger and your charge session ends, it's like they start charging with idle fees. So you can't just plug in a supercharger and leave your car. Now,
Only at the supercharger station is 50% full.
That's right. And the other way to get around it is you quickly whack out your app and you set your charge up to 100%. And of course, the closer it gets to 100%, the slower the charge speed becomes. So the more time you have to finish a cup of coffee and get back to the car. There's two UMCs. So when you see UMC, Universal Motor Charger, you've got a UMC 1, which came with the S and the X, and a UMC 2, which comes with the 3. Now the 3, they give you these leads, the 10 amp lead and the 15 amp lead. The 15 amp lead's got the bigger earth pin. You just simply plug these into the UMC, turn it on, plug it in, away it goes. This thing puts out about 7.7 kilowatts an hour. So you can calculate how long it's going to fill up your battery. So standard range about 50 kilowatts, long range about 75 kilowatts. So if you're running this thing at the maximum, you're looking at about 10 hours, but obviously as it gets to 100%, it's going to slow down. But that's fine, because if you go somewhere for a weekend, you're staying in a B&B or something and you can plug in, you're not going to be using the car for 10 hours. Hopefully you get a good rest and stuff. So that's a UMC 2, so it's a lighter, smaller unit. UMC 1, these will actually put out about 12 kilowatts. So interestingly, these, if you have one of these, this is as good as a juice booster for a Model 3. So this doesn't put out the maximum charge rate for an S or an X, but it does for a Model 3. So this is probably as good as a juice booster for a Model 3. And then you've got your tail options for these guys. So what happens here is you need a whole raft of these things. So this is how it comes normally. It's supplied 10 amp plug. So the same as 10 amp plug for that, you're going to be sitting around for 48 hours to fill your car up. Then the next one, so this will be running at 10 amps.
Bit like 4 kilowatts.
Now, apparently, Neil's telling me that it's really hard to find these adapters now. So the UMC1, if you try and buy a UMC1 as a Model 3 owner, I'd be making sure that this adapter was included. So this adapter goes on the UMC1, and then these are the traditional leads that you buy. Now, you've got to be careful because the plugs are slightly different. They're a different diameter. So this has got a little tangent at the bottom. That's a 20 amp 3-phase plug. There's a little flat bit at the bottom there. This one's slightly bigger in diameter and bigger diameter pins. This is a 32 amp plug. Instead of the little flat tangent at the bottom there, it's got a little rectangular notch, right? Now this plug is probably the most common plug at caravan parks and industrial sites. So this would plug in, then this 3-phase thing would plug in there, and when you do that, this will put out your 11 or 12 kilowatts, and basically if you had that for Model 3, that would actually be the fastest way to charge your car. For a Model 3, this would be as fast as your optimal home setup with the HPWC. So I've seen Model 3 guys also say, I'm getting 3-phase 32 amp from HPWC. I'm thinking, geez, I hope that person has got someone with a Model S with dual chargers that can take 22 kilowatts as a friend. But Model 3, because they're down to 11 kilowatts, it's not worth putting on all the 3-phase wiring unless you think, oh, maybe I'm going to get a plate, Model S or something in the future where you're going to need that. As long as it's putting out, as long as you're maxing out your charging, your 11 kilowatt charger in your car, that's all you need.
Wouldn't, if you have 2 cars, wouldn't you want a daisy chain it?
You can set them up either way. So I've got 3 chargers at my place, and I've got 2 daisy chains off a Powerwall, and I've set those at 20 amps, so I don't swamp the Powerwall. And then the other thing about charging is you can set scheduled charging and the charge power amps in the car. So when we look at the car, I'll show you how to do that. So what I generally do is even though you've got the charger set up and I've got my HPWC set up at 32 amp 3-phase at home, I've never cranked it up to 32 amp 3-phase because I don't want to draw current off the grid. Yeah. So, so I've got the flexibility. If I come home after a big trip and I want to go away on a big trip the next morning, I could set it up to 32 amp 3-phase and charge my car at 17 kilowatts. It's 22 kilowatts for the dual charger car, so I could charge it at maximum speed. So I've got that option. But have I ever done it? No. But maybe I'll do it one day. So, but the thing is, you can have multiple HPWCs at home. So I've got the 3-phase 32 amp set up in its own circuit, and then I've got the 2 HPWCs that I've basically set up for Model 3s or Model Ys, and they're on a single circuit shared with a Powerwall, and I've just dialed those at 20 amp, but I might dial them up to 24, and then when I've got the car in the garage, I just dial that down to 5 amps, and then I can see how many kilowatts it is, and then I can look at my app and see how much kilowatts my PVs are producing, and I can basically load share the charging of the cars with the electricity I'm producing. And hopefully Tesla, in a software upgrade, if you've got a Tesla Power or a Tesla cars, will write some integration programming to allow you to basically set that up manually. The other thing is, I have found that I've stopped the charger by changing the amperage too quick in the car.
Yeah.
And so there's a reset on your HPWC, so if you stuff it up and it stops charging, it's like a PC, you've got to go and hold the reset button in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good that all of this stuff is coming, and I guess a lot of the message is, don't panic, don't go and buy stuff. All these people are running out buying zappy chargers for $1,000, getting them in there, because when a cloud goes over the PVs, the car stops charging. I don't know how good it is for a car to have it going, sunny charge, cloudy stop charging, sunny charge. I mean, I don't know if I'd want that. I think I'd go, I think I'll pay for a bit of grid money.
Let's be used that, sure.
Yeah, and especially as ACT is 100% renewable now.
So just mention one thing for the Model 3 owners might get worried. What is great is, with the appropriate adapter, you can charge up almost anywhere along with just electrons. In your current car, you can't show up in your diesel and go, well, petrol's cheap today, I'll take a bit of it. There's no magic converter, but with the right cable, you can travel almost anywhere. Most of those electrons, there'll be an adapter cable somewhere to charge your car.
Even the 240 watt power point.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's what everybody does. Plug to a standard power point from there overnight. It is fantastic going an electric car.
Yeah.
So if you change the amperage in the car, does when you plug into a supercharger, does it ignore the amperage set?
It doesn't make any
Yeah,
difference.
good.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the,
So when you change the amperage in the car, it is interesting. It does remember the location of the car. So if you go somewhere else, it'll talk to the charger and it'll just take what the charger will give it. When you come back home, it'll go back to where you set it. So that's quite nice.
Just for the Model 3 with the UMC, but the 3-phase plug that you mentioned at the caravan park,
Yeah.
is that an option? Does it come from that all the way to the
So
CCS?
this guy here,
Yeah.
the UMC2, which you get with the Model 3, is single phase 40 amp most.
Yep.
So most single phase, the most you're going to get is 32 amp. I haven't seen anyone wire up a single phase 40 amp yet.
But
So-
even if it was still, I know you lose the other 2 phases on the 3-phase caravan plug, but you
Okay.
have a plug in a caravan plug.
Okay, so
Well, you need a different adapter for here.
Yeah.
And it's got a blue plug on it. It's called a commando plug. Yeah.
One suggestion that came up, actually came through the TOCA Club. There's one guy, lives in Victoria, he's a very, very clever little man, does a lot of stuff with electricity. What he's done with his HWPC, so your wall connector that came in the box, is instead of getting it hardwired to the wall at home, he's got it connected to this is the most common one for the electric highway around Australia, the 20 amp 3-phase plug. Wire that in to your HWPC, put a 20 amp 3-phase plug on your wall. If you don't have 3-phase, doesn't matter, wire it up as single phase, your car will charge at single phase. Off that, the HWPC will look after you. And if you want to charge at 3-phase, rather than worrying about getting all this other paraphernalia, take it off the wall, take it with you and use it. It's a really simple solution. For a little bit more than it costs you to get it put on the wall standard, you've got a transportable 3-phase unit. And that pretty much takes out of the equation almost every other adapter if you do that.
I guess you're not hard wiring it then if you're at house or anything.
Yeah, well, that's right.
But the only thing there is the HPWC, it's not for outdoor use and stuff like that, so they don't say it's portable. So now there's some adapters like that with a blue plug on the end called a commando plug, and it's not actually rated at 40 amps. So even if you did one of those single phase to a blue one of those that plugged into the commando plug, you're only ever going to get 7.7 kilowatts out of this anyway. So it's so. I guess the conclusion is basically look at what your circumstances are and stuff like that. I would basically suggest borrowing adapters for your trip, and then once you're pretty sure what you need, use that.
Can I ask about the use of extension cords? I'm thinking of real life situation. We drive to Adelaide, we stay at the same B&B. I'm a bit concerned that UMC won't reach in there.
Look, I personally have used extension cords. You just get a really good quality one, like a 15 or a 21, and then you uncoil it and then check the extension cord and the plugs to make sure they're not being hot.
Yeah, okay.
Now with the UMC2, because it's running at less power than the UMC1, you're probably going to be okay. But yeah, you get a tradesman. But I've actually used this guy with
Okay.
Plugged into
So the
a
Model 3
laundry.
one should be,
Yeah,
should be
with,
okay
with a
with
caravan
proper-
lead and it charges on.
Definitely make sure you don't coil the roll though. If it gets too hot, that's just like a fuse and then short. So just very much make sure that kind of happened to me on set.
Yeah, so I'm coiling the extension cord. Yeah. And I think I've got the sheet in the bag here. That's the answer to the question. That's my emergency. If I can't reach a PowerPoint, I've got a trade quality extension cord there. That's what I'll use if I can't park within 7 metres of a PowerPoint. I bought this for my wife. It's a Model 3 Performance. The reason I had to buy a Performance is because I particularly wanted a white interior, because I think they look classy. So some of the differences I noticed between this and the Model 3, on the Model S, which is what my car is you have to actually link. So in the case where you've got more than one person using the car, each person has to get a Tesla app on their phone. So you've got to become a Tesla user. So you use your email address to register with Tesla. So each person needs to do that. Then the person who bought the car has to request Tesla service to give the other user access to their VIN. Now when that happens, both people will see the Tesla car come up on their Tesla app. So for people that haven't got a Tesla, there's a Tesla app that you download, it's free. Cars aren't free. So there's the Model 3, it's telling me doors open, bonnet's open. So they're the registered things. So you've got a Powerwall, my other Model S and the Model 3. So once the phone's registered with a car like this, the phone becomes the key. So the Model S and the X, you've got this thing. So I can give that to someone, they walk up, it'll unlock the car, they walk away, they lock the car. If you give someone their credit card for Model 3, they walk away from the car doesn't lock. So that comes as quite a shock to me, but if you've never had a Tesla before, that's all right. If you've registered the car on this app, so you can see it on the app, and then the next thing you do is you've got to pair the phone with the car. So there's two parts, getting the car on the phone and then pairing the car with the phone. When you walk away from the car having done that, it will lock. So be careful, there's been reports of people wandering away from their car and coming back hours later and realising they never locked it. So if you're using the key, you put the key here and it'll lock and then you can walk away. If you're using your phone, you can just walk away. All right? So that was one of the things, it's a difference that I found. The next thing I found, and I'd recommend, is if you get in the car, you can set pin to drive. So if you set pin to drive, when you get in, press the brake pedal. You've got to put in your pin, press the allow button, you can drive it. So if someone nicks your phone or your credit card, which has happened, this is why the pin to drive was started, because there was a young fatality in the States, and Tesla responded by rolling out pin to drive to all Teslas. So the facility is there. You've got to enable it in the settings. When you get your car, if you're in the ACT, it's got transport mode on the dash. Has anyone seen that? I'll show you a photo. You did?
Yeah, it was on when I got mine.
Right. The password to get it out of transport is transport all lowercase. There you go. Thank you.
The guy on the phone was setting it up and he's like, is it all looking good? I'm like, it says the big word transport. He's like, oh, whoops.
Yeah, that's it.
Told me that.
So if it's delivered to you, it's got transport. Yeah, that was that. So I had to figure that one out. Okay, now another one for people that haven't got a Model 3, if you want to get the 1,500 kilometres free supercharging, there's been a lot of people that have missed out because they haven't actually used the referral code properly. So unlike Model S and Model X, if you don't order the car through the referral code, there's no way to retrospectively apply the referral. You used to be able to do that, now you can't. So if you're going to order the car and you want to get the free supercharging, choose the referral code supplier which would be any existing Tesla owner, choose me, but you know, like the other people like Tesla Bjorn and all those guys, they're getting hundreds of referrals because people are using them all the time. I've got referrals because I use my own referral code to buy the car. Which was funny because when it came up in the app, it says I got 3,000 free kilometres. Like, oh, that's really good because I got one for someone using my code and then I got one for using a code. So you have to go to that code, press on the code, it will take you to the ordering page and you can order your Tesla and you get the 1,500. And if you don't do it, the only way to undo it is you've got to cancel your order, get a refund and reorder. Don't ask me how I know that. Okay, so we've talked about scheduled charging and charge speed, that's really good. Talked about, so setting up driver profiles, you can set up driver profiles. So you only have to set the car up once for each driver, save it as a profile. Like I go for trips often and I let the other people drive because I think maybe they'll love Tesla so much they'll buy one and use my referral code. Hasn't happened yet. But at least they've got driver profiles in my car, so the next time we go on a trip, they can find their profile and set it all up. There's one good profile to set up. Obviously, with these sorts of cars, curbing the rims is really easy. You see it all the time. My car actually got delivered with free curb rash on the left front. So the tip from that is from Mark Tipping, the president of TOCA, said set up a reverse profile. When you drop it into reverse profile, the mirrors drop down so you can see your rear wheels. So if you're going through a parking garage and the exit, you know, you're obviously getting the car right out. You can be looking at the curb on the left rear or the right rear to make sure that you're not going to grind the rim on the curb. That's really common.
So there's no automatic reverse mirror adjustment?
When you put it in reverse, the mirrors will go down. So have a reverse profile for when you're going forward. So if you're going forward through tight car parking spaces, you can watch your rims. Because the only time I've ground my rims is actually going forward. If you look in the boot, have you seen the deep footwell in the boot? Mm-hmm. So some people pull this thing out and you're loading stuff like whatever you've got in the boot. And the American dudes say, don't just pull it out. It's actually designed to just flip up like it's on a hinge and it'll rest against the back. So you can flip it up and rest it on the back. And interestingly, in the Model S, it's got one of those. It's actually designed, it's got a little hinging bit. It'll hinge and actually fit down inside. So Tesla have actually thought about the boot on this particular car and designed that hatch and everything so it fits perfectly. It's flipped up now. These guys. So moving around the car, I'm allowed to touch the car because it's my wife's car. They're recommending that you wrap the console. So the console's that shiny black plastic, and you can get various wraps to cover it with, like a carbon fibre wrap. The point is the shiny black piano finish is very soft, and if you rest anything on the finish, it will actually scratch. So wrapping it can be an option, and you can get choice of wraps and stuff. And if just a sticker that goes over it, you can peel it off later. There's another feature called cabin overheat protection. Have anyone heard of that? So if the battery's over 20% and the car's over 40 degrees, the air conditioning will come on. When your battery gets to 20%, it automatically turns off.
So this is in addition to dog mode?
That's in addition to dog mode. So dog mode's the same. You have to be careful with dog mode because dog mode will also turn off at 20%. So there's a couple of air conditioning settings in the car. If you have the air conditioning on, if you're running errands, especially at Christmas time, you can set your air conditioning to stay on. So even if you lock your car and walk away, when you come back, the air conditioning will be on. And there's dog mode. The difference between always on and dog mode is in dog mode, the steering wheel control to adjust the air conditioning is actually disabled. That's to stop the dog accidentally changing the air conditioning. And that was a software upgrade after a complaint. Right? Yeah, thought that was interesting. Okay. Rightio. In the trunk, the American guys are saying the trunk, you get all American because it's trunk and front. Because boot and fruit doesn't work as well as trunk and front. You've got these handles here. So rather than grasping the car and leaving dirty marks, or if you've been down a dirty road and the car's dirty, you can grab this handle here and reef it down in close to boot. There's another feature called Easy Access. You can set it up on the driver profile, so it changes the seat, so it's really easy to get in and out of the car. Then when you're ready to go, press the brake pedal, the seat will actually return to your driving position. Now you have to be a little bit careful with that, because if you've got someone sitting behind you and you put the car in park, the seat will move back and could cause some discomfort to the person behind you. So you can make a judgment about easy access. Okay, I thought it was quite interesting. You've got electric door handle here. If you're immersed in water and the battery's short out, you can still get out of the car because there is a mechanical door handle here. People say the cars are expensive and they're going to wait to buy the car, and it's a really hard analysis. I try to get my hand around it. You know, we're looking at less than 1% of vehicles on the road are EVs, so we're going to have a rise for 10 years where Tesla and EV makers are selling as many cars as they can produce. So the idea that cars are going to get cheaper, I can't understand how that's going to happen. The only time they're going to get cheaper is when you've got the current situation where dealers are stacked up their car yards, and you know it's getting to the end of the year and they've got to get rid of the 2019 cars before 2020. You can go in and get yourself a good deal. But with these cars, they're not that year specific. They haven't changed the Model 3. The Model S had one facelift. It's been in production for 7 years. And so I can't really see what downward pressures are going to make the car cheaper. So then the next thing is, if the car's not going to get cheaper, if you delay your purchase, all you're doing is delaying the benefit, because the car's actually engineered to last for 1 million miles. That's 1.6 million kilometres. So this car for me is a willable asset because it's going to keep going long after I die. So if I delayed 5 years before it could be cheaper, all that's going to happen is I get 5 years less use out of the car. I've delayed the benefit. So obviously you've got to be able to afford the car, but delaying is just delaying the benefit. Now, and then I come at it from the other way. If you're driving a fossil car now, the best money you're going to get for your fossil car now is now. It's not going to be worth any more in 2 years or 3 years. So if you can realise the maximum value for your fossil car now, that's going to give you the deposit for the Model 3.
Hey guys, thanks for coming. I'm not a Tesla owner, unfortunately, but I'm hoping if all of you use my services, then I too can join you guys. So that's the actual motivation of tonight.
You're telling us that's the way to promote Tesla cars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, so I run a business called Obsession Car Detailing. We started back in 2009, 2010, shortly after I finished uni. So what we specialise in is basically high-end detailing, so bringing your old car back to life, you know, restoring the paint, the interior, the finish, everything, protecting new cars and installing paint protection film on new cars, which I suppose is protection. Well, now, when it comes to paint protection on cars, people say, oh, is it needed? No, it's not. You know, if you don't care that much about your car, then who cares? There's a bit of a myth that once you've got paint protection on your car, you never have to wash it, never have to do anything to it. That's not true. Any sort of paint protection for your car, whether it's a ceramic coating, paint protection film, is for people who actually care about their cars. So if you've got an old banger and you don't care about it, then you wouldn't spend the money on that. The main benefit of any sort of protection for your car is it makes it easier to maintain, keeps it looking good for longer, protects any sort of damage, and makes your life easier. It saves you money in the long run because you don't have to polish it, wax it, all that kind of stuff. Now, if you're the kind of person who enjoys spending 4 or 5 hours on a Sunday polishing your car, waxing it, doing all that kind of stuff, that's awesome. But then a ceramic coating and to a lesser degree paint protection film is probably not for you because it's going to mean that you've got nothing to do on your Sundays anymore. So that's something to consider as well. So let's talk about the two major types of paint protection, the differences, the benefits, etc., etc. So we've got ceramic coatings, which you've all heard of, and we've got paint protection film, which many of you may not have heard of. Ceramic coatings have got many names: glass coatings, quartz coatings, silica coatings. They're all essentially based around silicon dioxide or silicon carbide chemistry. The idea being that's an inorganic substance that won't react with the organic elements in the air and the environment, and that means that your car will be protected. Clear coat on your car, from a chemical perspective, is essentially a carbohydrate. So when you get things like bird droppings on your car, you're driving in the summer and you've got dead insects on there. Insects may have stomachs. Stomachs have got enzymes and acid juices and digestive juices, and your clear coat's a carbohydrate, so it's going to essentially digest that, and that's what causes the damage on your paint that can't be fixed. So the idea of having a ceramic coating in your car is that it provides this inorganic layer to prevent that from happening. Let's talk about paint protection film. So what I might do, I've got some offcuts here. We might just pass these around. And here. Oh, so this here is a piece of paint protection film. You can see it's an actual physically thick piece of film. Unfortunately, I don't have a car here which has it installed on. We were trying to get Simon's car done in time to get some film installed, but the courier didn't deliver their film until 4:30 this afternoon, so we had no chance. But you can see it's kind of strong and like hard to penetrate and break. So try and break that. It's, you know, if you try hard enough, it will break. So it's not bulletproof. And the idea of paint protection film in your car is that it provides physical protection from physical damage. So people leaning on your car, stone chips, people keying your car if they, you know, don't like Teslas, they don't like electric vehicles. You know, I think there are lots of reports of vandalism against EVs. So, you know, I have seen many examples where cars have been keyed with film on them, and you take the film off and the paint is all good. So I suppose with ceramic coatings versus film, ceramic coatings provide protection from chemical damage being bird droppings, tree sap, insects and things like that, whereas a film provides protection from physical damage, as I've mentioned. So that's the two things. Now, there's a bit of a myth or dodgy marketing by companies saying that coatings will prevent stone chips and will prevent scratches. No, they will not. Now, if you test it in a lab environment and you have an uncoated sample A versus a coated sample B, and you measure the scratch resistance, the coated sample will display slightly more scratch resistance. So they're not technically lying. The problem is, in the real world, that's not what happens. And the way these tests are done in the lab, they're not done with paint, they're done with a standard substrate which does not behave the same way as paint. So if anyone ever tells you that a ceramic coating will stop scratches, they're lying, or they don't know what they're talking about. So please don't listen to what they say. I've been installing ceramic coatings since before they were called ceramic coatings. We should just call them paint protection, you know, and then the word ceramic started getting thrown around by, I'm not sure who came up with that, and that's what it is these days. So with film, the most popular thing to do is to get the most vulnerable areas protected. So that's your bumper, your front guards, your headlights, your bonnet, and your mirrors. And look, for 90% of people, that's probably the way to go, because there's a big price difference between getting that versus the whole car. Now, the other benefit, though, of film is that it has what we call a self-healing top layer. So if you jump on YouTube and just type in self-healing PPF, you'll be able to see that. But what it essentially is, those fine swirl marks or scratches that you get in paint from, you know, people rubbing up against it, washing it with a dirty towel, which over time, you know, end up as swirl marks. It looks kind of like a spider webbing pattern in your car. Those will no longer be a problem with if you have film on your car because of that self-healing top coat. Now my car, it's black. I've got film on the bonnet and nowhere else. And if you take it out in the sun, you see that the bonnet looks immaculate, whereas the rest of the car looks awful. I haven't had a chance to polish it yet. And that's because of the film. It keeps it looking good. Now, it could be argued that a surface without film, with a good quality coating, looks better than a surface with film. And I would tend to agree. So if you're trying to win best paint at a car show, or you built you know, a $300,000 show car, you're taking it to SEMA, which is the show in Las Vegas, and you're trying to win the award there for the best paint, you wouldn't put film on it. Because a properly prepped paint job will look miles better than any film job. The problem is that perfectly prepped paint job will look amazing for about a week, and then you're going to have chips and scratches and things like that. Whereas the film will look 99% as good for years. So a lot of guys with classic cars, for example, you know what they do, they'll have a restored classic car. They go around to all the shows, get their trophies, and now they want to drive their car. So what they do is they'll get the film installed in their car, and now they can drive it. Because they've got their trophies, they've done the work, and now they want to enjoy it. The most common car that we wrap here at OCD are Porsches. Most Porsche owners tend to be people who like to drive their cars. Most Ferrari owners tend to like to park their cars, and so that's just an observation that I've had, you know. Yeah, no, it's true though. It's yeah, you know. Yeah, true. Yeah, so most Porsche guys, you know, will, I mean, for example, that what's that? Came in there. He's getting basically the whole car out. You know, and we've done, you know, there's a GT2 RS up there. We've done a couple of GT3 RSs. We've certainly wrapped a lot of Teslas as well, Model X's and Model S's, and again, that front end is the most popular.
When you're wrapping a car, it's obviously best to get the car when it's new. Like
Yeah,
my car's
yeah.
got 32 kilometres on it, so it shouldn't have any chips on it.
Exactly.
I remember my first car I came to, it had 10,000 kilometres on it.
Yeah.
And it had chips, and you explained to me what I would expect when I've got chips and scratches in the car and you put film over.
Yeah. So it's important to note with film, it will tend to highlight any existing defects in the paint. So if you've got lots of stone chips or you've got a big scratch there, you can't just wax some film on it and be like, yeah, great, you know, it will highlight those. It kind of has a magnification effect. So when you buy a car, the best thing, and if you're interested in getting film, the best thing to do is bring it in straight away, or just don't drive it and bring it in as soon as possible. Or if you have to drive it, don't tailgate any trucks, stay off the highways. Most stone chips are caused by tailgating people, so just don't tailgate people and you should be okay.
But you were able to do some paint correction on the chips on my car.
Yeah, so on chips we can touch them up. And it's never going to be exact because obviously when you touch up a stone chip it's done with a paintbrush, and paint lays down differently when applied via a brush versus a spray gun. But sometimes it's not economically viable to respray a whole panel because of one scratch or one chip. Like I had a gentleman come by today, he's got a black Model 3, he had some defects from factory and one of them was a tiny little chip. And I said, look, you could go to Tesla and you could get it resprayed, but do you want to be waiting another 4 weeks for your car? And he said no, you know, for something that will probably happen again anyway, you know, once you start driving. So you have to kind of, you know, they're cars. They're here to be driven. So if you want your car to be perfect, like I said, we can polish it, coat it, and it will look amazing. And if you put it inside in your garage and never drive it again, it will look fantastic. But if you want to enjoy your car, you have to accept the fact that, you know, it's going to get some wear and tear on there. But something like paint protection film can help minimize that wear and tear over time.
So the next one that's come up a few times on the forum and we've chatted about is the life expectancy of film, and people making accusations that modern films can go yellow in the sun, especially on white cars.
Yeah, look, it's not actually the film that goes yellow, it's the adhesive. Over time, on older films, the adhesive would turn yellow. Now, the modern films that we use, the XPEL film that we use, comes with a 10-year warranty against yellowing, and that covers labour and the film. So if it does happen, you're covered. Now, obviously, film, it's not optically clear, it's 99% clear. So on a white car, when you put it, you will see a slight difference. If you have a trained eye. On most other cars, you'll never see a difference once it's installed. You know, you've got that. I think 10 years is a pretty good warranty. Now, what I would suggest though, that if your car lives outside most of the time or gets driven a lot, you might want to think about replacing the film sooner than that. You know, because the longer you leave it on, the more difficult it is to remove. And you know, the way I see it is that film is there to preserve your paint, preserve your car, but it's there to look nice as well. So over time, what happens is, especially on something like a Model 3 with this big square, you know, front bumper, that will get that will pick up damage. It will get lots of tiny little marks over time, and you might want to think about replacing that every couple of years. So for example, I've got a few customers who are hardcore track junkies. They go to the racetrack every month, and they replace the film on the front of their car once a year because it gets absolutely hammered. Whereas people who just drive their cars normally, I would say every 5 to 7 years is what you want to think about replacing the high wear areas. And after 10 years, you really want to remove the film completely. But look, who knows what's going to be, 10 years from now, it's a long way. We don't, will film be around then? It'll probably be something that's different, will Model 3 still be around? Who knows?
I hope so.
Cool. So then you've got a booking process. I think I went through the booking process with you yesterday.
Yes, so as in when you drop the car off, or?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so look, so when you drop your car off, what we do, we walk around the whole car, make sure there's no damage. If there is any, we highlight it and ask, what would you like to do? Now the problem is, when most people drop cars off, they're going to be dirty, and we have a very comprehensive washing process that we go through, and that's where we pick up any more damage. So every Model 3 we've done so far, we have found damage. Then we'll give you a call and say, look, we found this damage, what do you want to do about it? Do you want to cancel the process and show Tesla and get them to fix it, or do you just want to continue? Most of the time the damage can be fixed by us, it's not really a big deal. And when you drop your car off, of course, we go through all the things that you want, and there's a little 2-page document you get which explains paint protection film for you. Bear in mind, we're talking about film here, but for a lot of people, ceramic coating is also a very viable solution because it's a fraction of the cost of film. And if you're not too precious about your car and you just want it to be easy to maintain and look great, then that's the way to go. This one here, for example, has had a multi-stage paint correction and has been coated. And if you look at the finish on this versus that, you can see, ignore the water on there, but if you look at it, there's a big difference in how they look and feel. That one is full of scratches and things, whereas this is 95% perfect. If you touch it with the back of your hand, you'll see how smooth it is, and this just looks awesome, whereas that doesn't, is lacking that kind of depth in the finish that this is. So, film isn't for everyone. It's, you need to be a certain type of person, and you need to want to be able to afford it as well, because it's not cheap. And look, pricing is all on an individual thing because everyone's different. So we've got different packages that can be discussed later. But ceramic coating is probably the more popular option, or getting film in the front end and ceramic coating on the back half of the car. When installing film, you'll see on YouTube videos that people polish the car and get it perfect before they install film on. They're doing that for the YouTube video, okay? In real life, and look, we do that, our videos have us polishing cars. In real life, when you're installing film in a car, you lightly polish the car to decontaminate the paint and remove any major issues. But if the car just has light swirls on there, which every car does, there's actually no need to correct the paint beforehand. In a way, it makes no sense, because the process of installing film can sometimes add swirl marks to the paint. So the time to perform a paint correction when it comes to film is actually if you ever decide to remove the film, because if you remove the film and you're left with some adhesion there because you didn't adhesive there because you didn't remove the film properly, then you might have to use some glue remover and things like that. And the solvents of that can sometimes scratch the paint, and that's where you want to do the paint correction. Doing the paint correction, like a proper paint correction where you remove all the swirls and get the paint looking 95% perfect, doing that before installing film is a waste of time and money. If someone wants us to do it, we'll happily do it, but it's not worth it, And I'm of the belief that where possible, preserve the thickness of your paint. So if there's no reason to polish a car, then you don't polish a car. Like I said, we lightly polish the car, and I don't classify that as a paint correction. Some might, but the purpose of that is to mechanically clean the paint, to clean the pores of the paint, to ensure that it's as clean as possible, to allow the best kind of possible bond between the film and the paint. Red and black paints tend to be quite soft compared to white and grey. We did a blue one yesterday, that wasn't too bad, but we've got another blue one coming in next week, so we'll do that. But I've done a couple of red, we've got 2 reds here, and they've both needed heavy work. The grey one that we did the other day, that was actually pretty good. The paint was in good condition, had a few other things wrong with it, but the paint was in great condition. And every single black Tesla I've seen, you know, looks like it's been washed at an automated car wash. Absolutely terrible. We did a Model X last week that I think we spent 18 hours polishing that thing to get it looking good again. And look, that's not necessary if you don't care. If you're not that fussy, if you don't have an eye for this stuff, then save your money. You know, don't worry about it. You know, not everyone. You know, but I do this for a living, so I have an eye for it. And in a way, it's better to not know that the swirls are there because it ruins your life. Because what happens is, and my staff have said this to me, that Saad, you've ruined cars for me. Because what happens is, once you know what paint defects look like, when you go out and look at a car, all you're going to see is the defects. You know, you don't see the car. So, you know, the main purpose of paint of ceramic coatings on cars is to make them easy to clean, provide chemical protection, and increase the gloss. And you know, for most people, that $13.90 package is going to be more than good enough. You know, especially if you're not going to be looking at your car indoors with a paint correction light. But you know, a lot of people just want it to be as perfect as possible, and that's great. We can do that for you as well. Other thing with wrap is it's a dynamic product. By that I mean, when you first get the car, there's going to be some imperfections in there, like bubbles and things like that. They will go away. You know, a few weeks, the wrap will level out and it will look great. So the car will look better 3 or 4 weeks after than when you first pick it up, and that's just the nature of the film. You can't get all the moisture out. There will always be a few bubbles, but they disappear over time. Same with window tint as well. There's always bubbles in window tint that then disappear over time.
So easy to maintain, but also cheaper moving forward if either of those applications are done?
Yeah, because you don't, I mean, look, it depends. I mean, if you're the kind of person who, you know, would maintain your car properly and use waxes and things like that, it will end up being cheaper because you'll find you won't need to wash your car as often, and you won't be spending money on waxes and sealants and things like that. Invariably what happens though is once people get it done, they get hooked and they find out about detailing, and they go on YouTube, they fall down this rabbit hole, and before you know it, they spend $1,000 on products and they're, you know, trying them out to do it. So if you don't fall into that trap, which everyone does, it will be cheaper. But the reality is that doesn't happen.
I think I'm the exception to the rule.
So, you know, I mean, there are people who will, you know, they try 5 different types of tyre shine to choose the one with the perfect amount of gloss for them, you know, and they fall into this rabbit hole. But it's very common, you know. So that's how I fell into this. So yeah.
What's the best leading person washing technique?
Optimum no rinse. Yeah, that's basically a rinseless wash, which you can do in an apartment. A lot of my customers who live in apartments do that, and that's basically have a bucket with the solution in there, and you have a sponge or a microfiber towel, and you just wipe the car with that, and then you dry it. If the car is filthy, then I'd advise pre-rinsing with a pressure washer first. But if it's just a standard weekly wash, that's cheap, easy, and quick, and can be done all year round. You can buy Optimum No Rinse online from a few places. zas.com.au have it. No, laser washes are terrible. It's because of the chemicals. People talk about laser washes, you know, being touch-free, and that's great, so they don't damage. But it's the chemicals that do the cleaning, and they're usually a very highly alkaline, highly caustic chemical. And you'll find with these chrome trims, it will etch into those, and you cannot fix that. You'll be buying new chrome trims. And having those chemical washes will diminish the life of the coating as well because of how highly alkaline they are. That's how they do their cleaning. So you can either clean by agitation or clean via through chemical means. And with car washes, it's very high alkalinity that causes that you get touchless washes. And also they do a really rubbish job anyway because the car comes from there and it's still dirty half the time. So you know, the best way to do it if you want to be quick, cheap and easy is Optimum No Rinse. If you look that up, ONR, look that up, how to wash your car using ONR. That's the best kind of way to do it if you want to spend as little time as possible doing it. So,
anyway, look, I thank everyone for coming. Thanks Saad for his hospitality, opening his business up so we can run through a few things. I hope people have got some information out of it, and we can join the club and get together again at some stage. probably Model 3 people might want to get together and not even join the club if they want to. So.
Make their own club.
Yeah.
Thank you.